There is a question that keeps people awake at night, not because it is frightening in the way that large and distant things are frightening, but because it is so immediate, so personal, so written into the daily texture of being a body moving through time. And the question is this: why could you run all day at 12 years old, fall down, get back up, and feel nothing? And why do you now, at 40 or 50 or 60, feel the effort of a single flight of stairs? Why does sitting too long in a chair leave you stiff? Why does the morning after physical exertion feel nothing like it used to feel? And the answer most people reach for is simply aging. I am aging, as though that explains something. But a physicist cannot accept a label in place of a mechanism. And the mechanism here, the actual molecular and thermodynamic story of what is happening inside your cells right now as you read these words, is far stranger and far more connected to the deepest laws of the universe than anyone tells you when they hand you the word aging and expect you to be satisfied. And verdict one is foundational. It is the thing you need to hold before anything else makes sense, which is that energy in a living body is not a feeling or a mood or a vague vitality. It is a precisely measurable physical quantity, expressed in joules and calories, governed by the same mathematical laws that govern the motion of planets and the burning of stars. And when you feel energetic, you are not experiencing a metaphor. You are experiencing measurable electrochemical processes in your cells, running at particular rates. And when you feel exhausted, you are experiencing a change in the chemistry of those same cells, a shift in the rates of specific molecular reactions. And this matters because the mechanism can be understood, and what can be understood can at least in part be influenced. So consider what happens to the toast or the eggs you ate this morning. Your digestive system breaks them into glucose, simple sugar molecules, which enter your cells and encounter the most extraordinary structures in all of biology, the mitochondria, which are not simply components of the cell, but ancient bacteria, organisms that existed independently on this planet for billions of years before one of our ancestral cells swallowed one of them, and instead of digesting it, kept it, formed a partnership with it. And that partnership has been running ever since inside every cell of your body. And verdict 2 is about what these ancient partners actually do and why their imperfection is the beginning of everything that follows. Because mitochondria take glucose and through a cascade of chemical reactions extract energy from it. But they do not release that energy all at once like an explosion. They store it in a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, a small molecular device with 3 phosphate groups held together by chemical bonds that store energy the way a compressed spring stores mechanical energy. And the scale of this process is almost impossible to believe until you sit with the numbers. Because right now, sitting quietly, your body is producing and consuming approximately 50 kilograms of ATP every single day, more than your own body weight in this molecular currency, which is possible only because each ATP molecule is recycled thousands of times, each individual cell consuming 10 million ATP molecules per second. And your heart beating, and your neurons firing, and your muscles contracting, and your immune system running its constant surveillance. All of it is powered by this continuous molecular turnover happening in the mitochondria of every cell you contain. And the problem that connects directly to everything you feel when you feel yourself aging, is that mitochondria are not perfectly efficient. No engine is. Thermodynamics does not permit perfect efficiency, and in converting glucose to ATP, they produce byproducts, reactive oxygen species, free radicals, chemically aggressive molecules that bounce around inside the cell and damage whatever they contact, proteins, cell membranes, and most critically DNA. And mitochondria have their own DNA, separate from the DNA in your cell nucleus, inherited almost entirely from your mother, and this mitochondrial DNA sits directly adjacent to the machinery generating the free radicals, like the blueprint for a factory stored in the room with the most pollution, and over years and decades the damage accumulates. And verdict 3 is where the physics of your personal experience meets one of the most fundamental laws in the universe, which is the second law of thermodynamics, the law that says entropy, the measure of disorder and dispersal of energy, always increases in a closed system. That order tends toward disorder, that concentrated energy tends to spread and dilute, that a hot cup of coffee always cools and never spontaneously heats itself, that mountains erode and castles crumble, and organized things gradually become less organized. And this law is not a statistical tendency or a general observation. It is as absolute as any law in physics, and Schrödinger understood that living organisms are the universe's most remarkable temporary exceptions to its consequences. Because you maintain order in your body, you maintain the specific chemistry and structure of a living cell by continuously importing low-entropy energy from your food and exporting high-entropy waste heat into the environment. You are swimming against the thermodynamic current. You are holding yourself together in a universe that is constantly trying to spread everything out. And the river you are swimming against is the second law. And when Sagan looked at this, he did not find it depressing. He found it extraordinary, because it means that every moment of being alive is an act of organized defiance against the tendency of the universe toward the popular idea that your metabolism crashes in your 30s or 40s is largely a myth. What changes in those decades is not the rate at which your cells burn fuel, but the efficiency with which they convert that burning into useful work. Because the mitochondria that power your cells are accumulating damage, their DNA is carrying more errors, their membranes are less intact, their machinery is running less cleanly, and the result is that the same quantity of glucose produces less ATP and more waste heat and more free radicals, which produce more damage, which further reduces efficiency, which is the downward spiral that you experience not as a single dramatic decline, but as the slow accumulation of 1,000 small inefficiencies, the slightly longer recovery after exercise, the morning stiffness that takes longer to resolve, the sense that the same effort costs more than it used to, and the physicist's image for this is a water wheel with a rusting axle. The water is still flowing, the fuel is still arriving, but the wheel turns with increasing reluctance, and the real cellular decline, the measurable drop in mitochondrial function that goes beyond the effects of reduced muscle mass and reduced physical activity, does not begin in earnest until after 60. And before that, the primary driver of reduced energy is not cellular aging, but behavioral changes, less movement, less sleep, more accumulated stress, all of which are modifiable. And this is not a small distinction. It is the difference between a process you can influence and one you simply endure, because the body has a mechanism for dealing with damaged mitochondria called mitophagy, the process by which cells identify their least functional power plants and dismantle them, recycling their components and replacing them with newer and more efficient versions. And the signal that most reliably activates this process is the signal of physical demand, the cellular message that says we need better power plants here, which the body sends when muscles are asked to work, which is why exercise is not merely beneficial in the vague motivational sense, but is a precise thermodynamic intervention, a way of telling the machinery to upgrade itself. And verdict 5 is the one that reframes everything, the one that takes all of this mechanism and asks what it means to be the kind of thing that runs on this physics. Because your atoms are almost entirely replaced every 7 to 10 years. The carbon and hydrogen and oxygen that currently constitute your body were not there a decade ago and will not be there a decade hence. And yet you persist. The pattern continues. The organization is maintained across the constant replacement of its physical substrate, and what ages is not the atoms but the information, the instructions encoded in your DNA for how to build and maintain the machinery. And those instructions accumulate copying errors across every cell division, and the repair processes that correct those errors are themselves encoded in instructions that accumulate errors, and this is the deepest level at which the second law makes itself felt in a living body, not as a simple running out of fuel, but as a gradual degradation of the organization that makes efficient fuel use possible in the first place. And Sagan knew this, and found in it not a cause for despair, but a cause for a particular kind of wonder. Because you are not a machine with a fixed fuel supply running down towards zero. You are a flame, a temporary and beautiful pattern maintained against the thermodynamic current by the continuous flow of energy through a structure of almost incomprehensible complexity. And on this pale blue dot, this mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam, the same laws that govern the burning of stars and the cooling of galaxies and the heat death toward which the entire universe is slowly moving are also governing the mitochondria in your cells and the ATP cycling through your muscles and the free radicals accumulating in your mitochondrial DNA. And you are the part of the universe that knows this. You are the arrangement of ancient star-forged atoms that can look at the second law of thermodynamics and recognize it not as an external force acting upon you, but as the very physics of which you are made. And the flame that knows it is a flame that understands the mechanism of its own burning, that can look at the accumulating inefficiency of its power plants and choose to activate mitophagy through movement and sleep and the discipline of not overwhelming its systems with excess. That flame burns differently, not longer necessarily, though it may burn somewhat longer, but more consciously, more deliberately, more aware of what it actually is, which is concentrated energy temporarily organized into something capable of experiencing its own existence on a cooling planet, orbiting an ordinary star in the outer spiral arm of an unremarkable galaxy in a universe that has been running for 13.8 billion years and will continue running for trillions more. And for this brief window, for this improbable interval between first breath and last, you are the universe's way of burning brightly enough to notice the fire. Keep looking up. If this video changed the way you think about your own body, energy, and what the second law of thermodynamics actually means for the way you live, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the next exploration goes even deeper. And tell us in the comments, does understanding the physics of how you age change the way you think about the energy you have right now?